Welcome to the home for the Tentative Yogi. On this channel, you are going to find tips, tricks, tutorials, all about learning yoga from the foundation up so you can safely practice yoga for many years to come. In this video, I'm going to talk all things props. Really, I'm going to focus on the pros, why some people don't like the props that I use, the props I definitely recommend, the ones I definitely don't recommend, and I'm also going to be covering why some people really don't feel you need props because I see their point for sure. So we're going to talk all things props, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment below and ask away. Now, if you want to know specifically how to use props, I did a video on each of my favorite props, the block, the strap, and the blanket, where I share what to buy, what to look for, and also my 5 favorite ways to use each of those. So I will link below to all of those videos. So I want to start this video with talking about whether or not you should be using props in the first place. There is a lot of controversy in the yoga world around, yes, you should definitely be using props. No, you definitely don't need to be. And honestly, I feel like there is a middle ground that we are all missing. So what I want you to understand is yoga, the reason there are so many different kinds of yoga out there is because individual people, yes, literally one person, created each of the lineages, if you will, the different lines of yoga, and they did it based on not only what they wanted to practice, and they developed their yoga in their body, but also the students they attracted. Now what's interesting is of the main kinds of yoga out there, they all came from one teacher. Isn't that interesting? One teacher who taught in the late 1800s taught these teachers, and they all went on to found lots of different kinds of yoga because there's lots of different kinds of people out there, right? So you've got the Iyengar yoga, and Mr. Iyengar is the one who really created all the props because he worked with a lot of people with special needs. They couldn't do the poses that they wanted, without the props because they weren't totally able-bodied. And then you have Pattabhi Jois developing Ashtanga yoga because he had 12-year-old boys in his class and he needed to keep them activated and he needed to keep them going because they were so distracted. So he started Ashtanga, which is turned into Vinyasa and power yoga. They needed something that was moving fast. So it depends on you, what you need. And I want you to realize that because all of this argument and controversy is really kind of a moot point because you just need to find what fits you, and it doesn't really matter what fits somebody else. So yes, I use props in my practice, and that's because I don't have a fully able body. I'm not super flexible. Yes, I've practiced for 30 years. My body in this lifetime is not going to be super flexible. It's just not how I'm made up. I'm okay with that. I need props in order to help me to touch the floor, in order for me to get into this pose without straining my back or without hurting my shoulder. That's why I use props. Plus, I attract students who aren't able-bodied as well, and I want to use the props to help keep them safe in poses, and then it allows us to be in more poses and to experience more poses than our body could do without the props. That said, one of the arguments against props, which I totally understand, is that they disconnect you from the body. So if you add a block, it's harder to understand where your body is in space, or a wall, or a blanket. And I know you may not understand that. If you're a relatively beginner to yoga, this might be you not quite sure what I'm saying. That's okay, you don't have to. Just know I get where people are coming from, and we do need to be even more aware when we're using props. The other reason that it can be a bit of an issue is we also need to know when we're done with props and we don't keep using them as a crutch. My yoga teacher used to say, and it used to crack me up because it was so true, the more I taught, the more I saw it. She said, you have a beginner student and you say, okay, come on, you need a prop. And they're like, no, I don't. Yes, you need a prop. Use this prop. Trust me, you need this prop. Then you get an intermediate student who grabs the props, uses all the props, totally comfortable with the props. Then you have the advanced student where you're like, okay, honey, give me the prop. You don't need it anymore. No, trust me, you don't need it. And it's true. So you do need to be open to that point in life when you no longer need the props, if indeed that comes, because there are poses that I know I will use props forever Because after 30 years of doing yoga, if I'm not in it yet, there's a really good chance I'm not going to get into the deepest expression of the pose and not need props. Okay, so let me share with you the props I definitely recommend and the ones that aren't really worth the money unless you really want them. So first of all, a mat is a must. Okay, mat is a safety issue, and this is where you're going to invest the most money. Okay, mats are not created equal, and I will tell you, this black mat I have under here, very best mat ever. I will link below to everything. In fact, I'm going to create a website a web page that has all of the things I talk about, so you can easily go and shop if you want to do that and grab all the things that I love. I will tell you, this black mat, it's about $125. It will be the only mat you ever buy. Okay, I actually won it in a contest, and it was $99 then. It's probably 15 years old at least. It doesn't look like it's all I use for my home practice. It looks like it's hardly used at all. Around $60 is going to give you a really good mat that will last a very long time. I've bought probably 10 $60 mats over the years that eventually wear out. Jade and Manduka are really good brands. I love both of those brands. If I just bought the black mat from the beginning, I would have been done forever. However, it is heavy. It's about, I think it's 7 pounds or something like that. Like, it's crazy heavy. So that's why I only use it at home. I don't travel to teach. I don't go to my retreats with it at all because I can't travel with it. So there are other mats for that. But just so you know, this is where your money goes, to your mat. Anything less than 60 is probably going to be slippery, which will drive you nuts. Yeah, it just drives my students nuts when they slide. And when you get a really good sticky mat, it's worth every single penny. Every penny. Now, this is a must because it's a safety issue. Okay, you don't want to slide in your standing poses. You don't want to slide in downward facing dog. It's actually dangerous. So a yoga mat is the only must, and a really good one. If you can spend the cash, definitely get it because it's going to save you money in the long run. Okay, the other 3 props I definitely recommend, although you can use things around the house initially to make sure that you're ready to commit to your practice before you invest, which I definitely recommend, are a block, a strap, and a blanket. So a block helps bring the floor to you, if you will. It gets you a little bit higher. A strap makes your arms longer, and a blanket will get you comfortable in poses. Now, all of these things can be used, like, you know, the strap from, or the belt from your robe. You can just use household things. A book, a shoebox. Shoebox is, you'll be able to use most of the time. It won't always be what you can use in exchange for it. A blanket, you need a really thick blanket and that doesn't squish. So I do find if you're not going to get a yoga blanket, you need like a bath sheet because those are really big and they're firm. Or also in a pinch, a cushion off, or no, not a cushion, a decorator pillow off of your couch tends to be firm enough to be able to give you enough support. But these are worth the investment when you're ready. And I did an individual video on each of these that I will link below. So you can go check those out to find out more about the ones that I recommend that you buy. And I share 5 ways that I used each of these in those videos. Now, the one prop I don't recommend is a bolster. Now, I'm not saying you wouldn't enjoy it if you had it, absolutely, but they're expensive and I hardly ever use my bolster. I bought this bolster 30 years ago. It looks brand new because I've used it maybe 20 or 30 times in all that time. The reason for that is I prefer to have blankets and pile blankets up. This is hard. There's no way to change the shape of this, right? I mean, sometimes I'll put a blanket over it to make it a little rounder or something. Yeah, you certainly can do that. But if you use a blanket, you can tuck a corner under your lower back to give it a little bit more support. You can tuck this underneath your head to support your head. You can flip it over to give yourself a pillow. You can make it half a blanket shorter or half a blanket higher. So much more malleable than this. If you have the money, it's a fun one to have. The money is much better spent in your mat, though, getting the black mat, than getting this. You probably aren't going to use it very much. Even if you do restorative with me, I don't use a bolster in my restorative class. I just find that it doesn't have enough flexibility, and I like a lot of flexibility in my yoga props. All right, enough said. If you want more about the block strap and blanket, I have a link below so you can check those out and just decide for yourself, because what you're going to see is if you aren't super able-bodied, and I mean really flexible, super strong, you definitely want to have props in your life to help you with certain poses. But you're also going to see in the videos that I did on the block, strap, and blanket, there are poses that you'll be able to do, additional things you'll be able to do with the props, no matter what kind of body you have, that just help you relax more and enjoy your yoga practice even more. So that's why I use the props and why I highly recommend them. So let me know if you have any questions, comment below. I'd be happy to reach out to you and answer any questions that you have. I have again linked below to the store so you can check out all the props that I use, and you can just directly go to the store and purchase them. Thanks for joining me. Namaste.